Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today it's time for us to review Pokémon Sword and Shield's second DLC pack. Yes, the Crown Tundra. This review was originally written by me, so please be kind in the comments. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Pokémon Sword and Shield is now finally complete with the release of the Crown Tundra, the second part of the DLC pass to go alongside the Isle of Armor. But how does it stack up compared to its great, if inconsistent, main game? Well, we'll tell you, because we're nice like that. We have to be honest, our first impressions of the Crown Tundra weren't outstanding. As you arrive, you're forced into a conversation, an inevitable Pokémon battle with a father and his daughter. You're given the option to interject and help the daughter out of an embarrassing expedition with her father, or just leave their business as their business. We decided to try the latter just to test the waters, but oh no! Even though the conversation ends, you can't go any further into the world. You must settle this disagreement between two perfect strangers. We were immediately hit with a worrying sense of, oh, here we go again. The father of the two, Peony, is a rambunctious caricature of an overzealous and overexcitable dad. He's over the top, dramatic, and painfully cheesy. We love him. He has all the ingredients of an irritating character, but his dialogue and cheery disposition, along with his genuinely hilarious names for quests, somehow managed to make him work. His daughter Peonia is a much more straight-laced individual and has little time for her father's antics, but she too is likable and didn't grate on us. After being driven down a very straight series of conversations and brief moments of walking before another conversation with probably the same character or same characters, which is something we complained about in our review for the base game as well as the Isle of Armor, you're taken into the first new edition of this DLC, Dynamax Adventures. In these, you must venture through a max lair and take on any number of Dynamaxed beasties with 3 others before potentially getting your hands on a rare legendary at the end, which is also bloomin' Dynamaxed. You can't use your own Pokemon in these, rather you have to pick from a selection of rental Pokemon instead. At first, we felt this was a bit naff. Why would anyone want to take in some randomly generated monsters instead of the ones that we've all been raising for potentially, well, nearly a year. Nearly a year! But after giving it a go, we can see why. By forcing you not to use your own monsters, you're instead thrown into battles and strategies that you may not otherwise encounter. It also means battles are balanced nicely, stopping the whole thing from being a cakewalk, and truth be told, our first run was a lot closer than we expected. You're required to get to the end without getting knocked out 4 times, just like a standard max raid battle, but any losses are universal throughout your entire run. Sneaky. At the end, you're asked which Pokemon of the ones you caught you want to keep, and realistically, it'll nearly always be the legendary from the end, but it's nice to have the choice. After this, you're thrust into the town of Freezington, and your adventure begins proper. You agree to replace Peony's daughter on his Adventor, and you are given 3 quests to follow. The primary quest has you discovering all about Calyrex, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, known to the natives as the King of Bountiful Harvests, and more importantly, where they've been hiding all this time, because he's kind of reached the point of being a myth. You'll meet the king himself, speak to him, which felt quite jarring, and we're not all that keen on him as a character overall, and then you'll perform a series of tasks to bring him back to power, and eventually shove him into a tiny ball for your own amusement. This is where the bulk of the direct narrative happens, and it's fine, but nothing much more than that. We found it hard to get invested in the world or its characters due to how we've only just bloomin' arrived, and the tasks didn't really amount to much more than fetch quests. Not terrible by any means, but hardly memorable either. The second quest is all about the fabled Regis that first appeared in Ruby and Sapphire, who happen to be residing in ancient ruins that no one has been able to access for countless years. When you reach one of these ruins, you have to solve an achingly simple puzzle, and then boom, it's Regicide time. Given just how obtuse and complicated it was to get these giants in the original games, we were quite disappointed with just how straightforward it is this time around. One of the puzzles is so basic you can solve it the first time you read it, and without having anything specific about your person, you don't have to go anywhere, you are already in a perfect position to solve it, and We understand that paid DLC shouldn't necessarily lock its rewards behind gameplay that's too complex, but even if you just needed to go adventuring to discover the clues rather than them just being plastered on the door, we feel that that would have given the quest a hell of a lot more weight, and also a considerably longer runtime, because this one's over quick. As it stands, it's nice to see the Regis return, but we think they deserve a little bit more love, especially if canonically these ruins have supposedly kept the presumably ultra dim-witted populace out for God knows how many years. The third quest, though? Oh, yes! Sweet lordy, this is a good one. The premise is simple. You run up to an oversized tree, and that's the cue for the original 3 legendary birds to appear in their shiny new Galarian forms. I've just realized saying shiny in this context may be confusing. They're not shiny. A cutscene is triggered that is dramatic, exciting, and well animated, and had us figuratively screaming, "Why isn't there more of this?" at the screen. The 3 birds run off after your phone starts ringing, and they scatter fiercely to the 3 different wild areas in Galar. That's right, this is a quest that has you not only exploring the new Crown Tundra, but also the Isle of Armor and the original wild area. You're not given much to go on, only that they're there, and you've got to track them down. When you arrive in the areas, it's not straightforward either. You have to work out where they are and how to catch up to them on your own, which compared to the rest of the quests sound very much like Galarian Zapdos, is no small feat. The birds are tough, and thankfully they don't have the same poor draw distance as the rest of the Pokemon, so if you lose sight of them, it's all on you, baby. We loved this quest. It's new, it's original, and slightly harkens back to the legendary beasts from Gold and Silver. Plus, those new designs are gorgeous. Overall, the quests are a bit of a mixed bag. None of them are out and out bad, but we would have liked to have seen the same open-ended solutions and genuine excitement that we felt from the legendary birds example. Regieleki is adorable though, so bonus points for that. There's also a semi-secret 4th quest found elsewhere in the area that's about halfway between the legendary birds quest and the Regis quest, but we don't want to spoil anything too much, which is it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But what about the new wild area itself? Well, like the DLC as a whole, our initial impressions weren't glowing. The landscapes were samey, full of fog and confusing at first glance, but as we explored a little bit further, and we left the area full of fog, things immediately improved. There are swathes of connected cave systems, narrow paths, big open spaces, bodies of water, the works. It's far less open overall than the Isle of Armor and left us gagging for the ability to hop down cliffs, but what it felt more like than anything else was a large series of the old routes found in older games and this one, but evolved. Narrow paths and strict one-way systems sort of go against the ideology of a quote-unquote wild area, but it absolutely works in context here. What initially felt restrictive and claustrophobic allowed us to explore in a manner that we hadn't been able to anywhere else in the game. We really hope this is a sign of what we can expect from future installments, because this combined with the bigger wild areas feels like the direction the series should absolutely be going in. As for performance and visuals, it's still marred with the same frame drops and slowdown as the base game, and the Crown Tundra isn't exactly the most varied of environments. It's serviceable, but a bit more visual variety in the independent biomes would help enormously with navigation, as the lack of landmarks and extremely basic town map can make things a bit of a chore. In short, the Crown Tundra is another fine addition to Pokémon Sword and Shield, but it emphasizes many of both the highlights and the shortcomings of the base games. The highs are excellent, white-hot flashes of wonderment, but they're a little bit spoiled by a foundation of aging game design. We would recommend this to anyone who enjoyed the Isle of Armor, but considering if you've paid for that, then you've already paid for this. It's hard to argue otherwise, but if we could, we would. The Crown Tundra offers a glimpse of a possible future, and what it does do, it does seriously well, but the series as a whole deserves to be completely dug out of the nearly 25-year-old design philosophies that made the originals great. The world has moved on in the nearly quarter of a century that Pokemon has been around, and it's high time for the series to catch up. You've reached the end, and yes, it's time for Alex's personal thoughts. As I wrote this, it's mainly littered with my personal thoughts, because that's what a review is. I will just say, though, overall, I enjoyed the Crown Tundra, but It's the same problem with the base game. Lots of interesting, you know, sort of little ideas here and there and plenty of charm, but the sort of the foundation is so bafflingly old now and so painfully stuck in the past that it drags the whole experience down. It could be so much better if they just gave it a modern injection, but they haven't done, and that's the thing holding back Pokemon at the moment. It's the same here, and I was kind of hoping that maybe the Crown Tundra would be, you know, like a big evolution, and they would maybe have more cutscenes and things like that, and really make it a much more cinematic and modern experience. And again, just like the base game, there are moments of that, but they are only moments, and that's a bit of a shame. It's good, it just could be so much better.